Welcome back to Eyes on Israel. It's my honor to be joined in the Israel 365 studios by member of Knesset, Ohad Tal. Ohad, how are you today?
Thank you very much, Rav Pesach. Pleasure to be with you.
So just a couple days ago, we had the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, coming out in a very aggressive way, criticizing the Israeli government, criticizing the Netanyahu government, calling on him to expel certain ministers from the government, including the head of the party that whose faction that you're a part of. Also calling on Israelis to rethink their future and to take into account a Palestinian state. It was a very aggressive move. He was calling for new elections in Israel. How did that sit with you and other members of Knesset?
Well, I think I can only say in one word, it's a huge chutzpah. This is how we see it. I mean, the hypocrisy is unbelievable. I mean, we thought we are ally with America. We are, as far as I know, we are a very democratic, vibrant democracy. We have our own legal system of dealing with things, and interfering with our own internal issues while we are at war. And again, I want to remind everybody, we are now fighting a war for our own existence. That's the reality. And for somebody like him to interfere with what is happening here, call for elections, preaching about the two-state solution, which is basically, and people have to understand, it means the end of the Jewish state. This is what it means, not less than that. It's unbelievable.
You just said that a two-state solution would mean the end of the Jewish state. Now, most people hear two-state solution, it sounds like a good idea. It sounds like an end to the conflict. The Palestinians get a state, the Israelis get a state. What did you mean when you just said that it would be the end of the state of Israel?
You know, Israel, since the day it was established, pursuing peace, we were willing to make massive concessions in order to achieve peace. And I want to remind everybody, Israel is a country the size of New Jersey. And yet, many of our leaders in the past 30 years were willing to give parts of our lands to the Palestinians in the hope that will bring peace. We withdrew from the Gaza Strip in 2005, completely. Gave it all to the Palestinians, while billions of dollars were invested in Gaza in those past 20 years. Did we get peace out of it? No, we got the massacre of October 7th out of it. Instead of taking all these dollars and investing them in making Gaza the Singapore of the Middle East, they chose to take all this money, invest it in missiles and underground tunnels, and make it to the biggest terror nest of the world. So this is what happened only in Gaza. So basically, offering, again, the two-state solution means that we will do the same thing exactly at the heart of Israel, just a few kilometers from Jerusalem, from Tel Aviv, from Ben Gurion Airport. Does that make any sense to anybody? Even just talking about a two-state solution after October 7th will also send a message in the Middle East that if you want to achieve something, use terror, and you will get the support of the world for what you want to achieve. And one more thing. People have to understand, you know, our soldiers coming back now from Gaza, every home they're meeting, they see huge picture of Al-Aqsa Mosque. They see maps of Israel with all the names of all the little cities and all the villages and the roads. Everything is in there. There's no green line. And instead of Israel, it says Palestine. The Palestinians, this is what we have to learn after October 7th. The Palestinians, they don't want a state that lives side by side in peace and harmony with Israel. No, they want a state instead of Israel. According to a poll that was conducted by a Palestinian, Dr. Khalil Shkaki, only a couple of weeks ago, we learned that even today, 72% of the Palestinians justify the massacre of October 7th. 84% supporting Hamas today after what they did. So again, we have to realize that they want a state instead of Israel. They don't want a state next to Israel. And the second we will understand that and we will realize that, we will act in the right way to change this reality. We cannot take the risk of having another terror state at the heart of Israel, threatening our own existence.
Yeah, look, that that number, that 72% of the Palestinians supported what Hamas did, and polling of Palestinians also shows that they don't want a two-state solution. They want, as you just said, they want one state without any Jews. The Israeli public right now has no appetite for a two-state solution. So the arrogance of people like Chuck Schumer coming out and calling for a two-state solution at a time when no one in the conflict wants it is just, it's just absurd. So you sit on the Foreign Affairs Committee,
Security and foreign
the
affairs.
Security and Foreign Affairs Committee in the Knesset, and right now Israel is nearing the total victory that we need to have in this war. Israel is talking about how we're going to be going into Rafah. We're going to be cleaning out the final brigades of Hamas and finally completing the mission that we started with. And a lot of people take a look at this situation. They say, look, you've already inflicted so much harm on Hamas. Even if you stop now, why do you keep calling it an existential threat? Why is it so critical to Israel's security to go into Rafah and to clean out the rest of Hamas?
Because we have to make sure that October 7th will not happen again. It's as simple as that. You know, I've heard that President Biden said that we will not tolerate 30,000 more Palestinians dead. Which, first of all, you know, these numbers are coming from the Palestinians themselves, which also was proven that they're lying a lot about the numbers. But even saying that these numbers are accurate, whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? Did we initiate anything on October 7th? No. On October 6th, there was a ceasefire. We didn't initiate anything. But they came. They butchered us. They slaughtered our families. They raped our women. They beheaded little babies. They kidnapped 240 people into Gaza, elderly, women, children, little babies. So we are now fighting Hamas in order to make sure that they will not be able to threaten our people again. If they will lay down their guns and will bring back the hostages, the war will end the second after. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. They're using their own people as human shields. They're shooting their own people. I mean, I don't have to remind you that, you know, when we started the war, we made millions of phone calls to people in Gaza. We've sent templates telling people, you know, evacuate yourself to safe zones, that we designated safe zones for people to go to, with food, with water, with everything. Hamas people were shooting their own people, preventing them from going to these safe zones. Our soldiers were protecting civilians of Gaza going to these safe zones. So if there are 30,000 people dead in Gaza right now, the only people to blame for is Hamas. So we have to complete the job. We have to complete the job for our own sake and for the Palestinians' sake, who are suffering by the hands of Hamas. And we know that their headquarters now is in Rafah, so we'll have to go to Rafah. We have to. We don't have other choice. But completing this mission, eradicating Hamas, because that's the only thing that will ensure that October 7th will not happen again, that will ensure that we will have another war with Gaza in a year or so. Because, again, it's not good for them, it's not good for us, it's not good for anybody.
Yeah, you know, that point you just made about how Hamas is responsible for all the civilian deaths, it sounds like a kind of like tit for tat, like he said, she said type of thing. But I think it's important for our viewers to know, it's important for everyone to understand that according to international law, Hamas is responsible for all those deaths because according to the Geneva Conventions, if in a conflict, one of the parties in the conflict takes a civilian location and turns it into a military installation by using it as a launching pad for attacks or using it as a munitions storehouse, that turns it into a military installation. And then when it is hit, if there are any civilian casualties, they are the responsibility of the party that turned the civilian location into a military installation.
And this is what we're seeing each and every day in schools, in mosques, in hospitals, everywhere, in houses. People will see under babies' beds rockets ready to be launched towards Israel, under babies' beds in Gaza. So this is what Hamas did. They're using their own population in order to attack Israel and to threaten Israelis' lives every single day in the past 20 years. We cannot accept that anymore.
So, one last question. You, of all the members of Knesset, and our viewers who are not yet familiar with member of Knesset Tal, you are at the forefront of building a positive relationship with Christians around the world on behalf of the Israeli government, on behalf of the Knesset. And really, you recognize the importance of that relationship. And we know that there are millions and millions of Christians all across America who are strong supporters of Israel. And yet, when we look out in the streets, we see that it's Israel's enemies who are taking to the streets and making lots of noise on college campuses. What would you expect to see more out of our Christian population? We got 1 minute left.
I want to see them with us. I mean, I think we are in a moment in history which will determine the rest of where we're going to. And we need our friends in the world to stand with us on the right side of history, to stand with the good, not on I mean, it's very clear. Now the world is good, and this war is between good and bad, between good and evil. Stand with us, be with us on these moments, because that will determine where the history goes. And I hope we will see our friends. I mean, we're fighting for the same values. We're fighting for identity. We're fighting for ability of people to stand for their religious identity, for their family values, for their national values. This is what we're fighting for. And if, God forbid, we will not win this war, we will not be the only one to pay the price, because people in America and the free world will pay the price all over the world, because radical Islam will understand that the path of terror is the right path to go, and everybody will pay the price. So we want everybody to stand with us, our friends especially.
Member of Knesset Ohad Tal, thank you so much for joining us here at the Israel 365 studios on Eyes on Israel. We're praying for your success, and we hope to have you back on the show many, many times. We'll be right back after this.